Hello, I'm Peter. I'm so glad you could join me for tonight's journey. Feel the weight of your blanket, how it simply obeys, keeping you warm without question. That is a quiet luxury. In the night we're about to enter, a blanket was not an answer. It was a question whispered again and again to a cold that never listened. We are about to return to a night without them. A night in 1620 or 1628. The years blur in the bitter cold. You've just pulled your gaze away from the last mast of the ship, vanishing over the horizon. You stand here on a hostile shore, your back to an entire ocean, facing a pitch-black forest, one that doesn't seem to reflect light, but devours it. Listen, the sound of your feet sinking into the frozen mire, a sucking, hissing sound like the land's own whisper. The sky above is no longer a dome. It is a pale grey abyss, so vast you could fall backward and vanish into it without a soul ever knowing. And the forest, it isn't silent. It is breathing. It is watching. Every dark trunk is a pillar supporting the darkness, a living wall rising before you. The first wall you must face even before winter, because winter is coming. You don't just feel it. You can smell it in the air, the scent of purity and cruelty. In England, autumn is a gentle farewell. Here it is but a sharp, hurried breath before winter slams the door shut, locking you in the bone-chilling cold. So, what do you have? A trembling hand, a tinderbox with a slippery flint, a few promises burnt along with the bridges back home, and a child whimpering behind you, a fragile sound stretched thin by exhaustion, the only countdown to the fading dusk. This isn't a story of heroes. This is a story of bodies, of how they shiver, starve, and desperately cling to a fragile sliver of warmth. We won't witness grand battles, but the greatest battle of all, the fight to wake up tomorrow morning. If you are ready for such a journey, show me a sign. AA like a subscription will help keep these journeys going. And if you can leave a comment, let me know where in the world you are right now. Because despite the distance between us, we are about to endure an unforgettable night together. Now, take a deep breath. Relax your tensed shoulders. Because where we are going, breath turns into white mist and warmth will become the ultimate luxury. Let us step into the darkness. There's a conversation happening between your body and this land, but you don't speak the language yet. Your body keeps asking questions in English, and the land keeps answering in something older, harsher, more truthful. The first question your body asks is, where is the house? The land's answer is silence, because there is no house, won't be a house. The very concept of a house as you understood it in England doesn't apply here. Those stone walls, those slate roofs, those structures that had been standing for generations and would stand for generations more. They were possible because of infrastructure you didn't even know existed. Quarries, lumber mills, a network of craftsmen who'd spent lifetimes perfecting their trades, roads to transport materials, markets to buy what you couldn't make. None of that is here. What's here is trees and desperation, and the knowledge that if you don't create some kind of barrier between yourself and the coming cold, your body will be found in spring, frozen in whatever position you died in. The building starts without plan, without design. It's improvisation pretending to be construction. The men who know carpentry are making it up as they go, adapting techniques meant for different materials, different circumstances, different stakes. You're holding one end of a sapling that someone just cut. It's green wood, still bleeding sap, flexible in ways that dried lumber never is. The man at the other end is trying to force it into the ground, using his foot to drive it deeper. The earth resists. The ground here isn't like English soil. It's harder in some ways, softer in others. Full of roots that grab at your shovel, full of rocks that appear from nowhere. The sapling goes in crooked, the next one too. By the time you've placed a dozen of them, you've created something that looks less like the frame of a building and more like a cage designed to hold wind. Someone has the idea to bend the saplings into an arch, to create a rounded structure instead of the vertical walls you're used to. It's copying something seen in a native village, or half remembered from a story told by someone who once saw a native village. The details are unclear. Everyone has different memories, different certainties about how it should be done. But the bending works somehow. The green wood is flexible enough. You lash the tops together with strips of bark with cord made from plant fibers. Someone figured out how to process with whatever holds. What emerges over the course of 2 days is something that might charitably be called a structure. It's dome-shaped, about 12 feet across, maybe 6 feet high at the center. The frame is uneven. Some poles are thicker than others. Some are straight, some curved. It looks like what it is, something built by people who don't really know what they're doing, but are trying very, very hard not to die. The covering comes next, and this is where things get strange. You've brought canvas from the ship, sailcloth heavy and stiff with salt. It's meant for catching wind, not blocking it, but you use it anyway. Drape it over the frame, tie it down at the base. The canvas creates a skin over the skeleton. A barrier. Not a good barrier, but something. But canvas alone is suicide. The wind will cut through it like it's not there. So you start layering anything that might add insulation. Bundles of marsh grass cut from the wetlands and dried as much as possible given the limited time and persistent dampness. You tie these bundles to the frame, creating a second skin between the canvas and the interior. It smells terrible. Rotting vegetation mixed with salt water and the general funk of material that's never quite dry. But smell won't kill you. Cold will. Someone suggests adding a layer of bark. They've seen the native people using it, large sheets of it, stripped from certain trees in ways that take skill you don't have. Your bark comes off in pieces, irregular chunks that don't fit together properly. But you attach them anyway, using wooden pegs, using more bark strips as lashing. The structure starts to look less like shelter and more like something that washed up on the beach. Something assembled by accident from storm debris. The door is a piece of canvas hung from a pole. It moves when the wind hits it, flapping inward, pulling itself aside to let cold stream through. You weight the bottom with stones. Adjust it again. it never quite works. The door is a failure you'll live with all winter. Inside, the space is dim even at midday. The layers of covering block most light. What filters through is grey and uninspiring. You can stand upright in the center if you're not tall. Everywhere else, you have to crouch or bend. The curved walls make efficient use of the space, but also make it feel smaller, more cramped, more like a burrow than a dwelling. The floor is earth, just dirt. You'd imagined vaguely putting down wooden planks, making a proper floor. But planks require lumber, and lumber requires saws, and time and skills you're only beginning to realize you lack. So the floor stays dirt. Cold dirt that will stay cold no matter what you do. Except it won't stay dirt, not really. The foot traffic, the moisture from breath and bodies, the general dampness of everything. It all combines to turn the floor into something between dirt and mud. A cold, sticky surface that clings to your boots and eventually to everything else. Someone has the idea of laying down pine boughs. They cut armloads of them, spreading them across the floor in a layer maybe 6 inches deep. The boughs help. They create a small barrier between bodies and ground. They smell good, too sharp and clean, a brief olfactory relief from the general funk. But pine boughs compress. Within days, they're matted down. Within a week, they're starting to rot from the moisture. You'll need to replace them regularly, which means regular trips into the forest to cut more. Which means time and energy you don't have, but spend anyway, because the alternative is sleeping directly on frozen mud. The real problem reveals itself on the first truly cold night. You're lying on your pile of pine boughs, wrapped in whatever fabric you could spare for personal use. Around you, 5 other people are doing the same. The fire, such as it is, burns in the center of the space. The smoke is supposed to rise and exit through a hole in the top of the structure. That's the theory. In practice, the smoke exits when it feels like it. Sometimes it rises straight up and out. Sometimes it decides to hover at face level for hours, stinging your eyes, coating your throat with residue that makes you cough. You've stopped trying to understand smoke. It has its own logic. What you understand very clearly is cold. The cold comes in through places you didn't know existed. The gap between canvas and ground. The spaces where bark pieces don't quite meet. The door that never quite closes. Each gap is a wound bleeding warmth. But those are just the obvious entry points. The real revelation is how cold rises from below. The earth itself is an infinite reservoir of cold. All the warmth of summer stored in the soil is long gone. What remains is ground that's decided to become ice from the bottom up. It's not frozen yet, not solid, but it's losing heat constantly, and that heat has to go somewhere. It goes into your hip, your shoulder. Whatever part of you is pressed against the pine boughs that are pressed against the dirt. You shift position, roll from your left side to your right. It helps for maybe 10 minutes. Then that side is cold too, the boughs having transferred all their minimal warmth to the ground. And now you're just a body losing heat from a different angle. The fire helps, but only if you're within 3 feet of it. Beyond that, you might as well be outside. And you can't sleep 3 feet from the fire because the heat on your face would be unbearable while your back freezes. You'd wake up feeling cooked on one side and frozen on the other. So you find the zone. The distance from the fire where you're cold but not dying. Where discomfort is bearable if you stay absolutely still and maintain the tiny envelope of warmth your body is trying to create between skin and fabric. This is how the first night passes. Hours of lying still afraid to move, because movement means losing whatever warmth you've accumulated. Hours of listening to other people shift and cough and breathe. Hours of wondering if this is sustainable, if humans can actually live like this for months. Morning comes without announcement. The darkness just slowly becomes less complete. You're stiff in ways you've never been stiff before. Your hip aches. Your shoulder throbs. Your neck is locked in position. Moving requires a conscious decision, followed by careful execution. Nothing happens smoothly anymore. Outside, frost has turned everything white. The grass is stiff with it. The trees drip with it. Your breath adds to it, each exhalation a small contribution to the general atmosphere of frozen moisture. The shelter looked fragile yesterday. This morning, it looks impossible. The canvas sags in places. Ice has formed where condensation collected overnight. The whole structure seems held together more by hope than by any actual structural integrity. But it stood through the night, through the cold, through the wind that tested every lashing. And it stood. That's something. It's not enough, but it's something. Over the following weeks, the shelter evolves. Improvements happen in small increments, each one born from a night of suffering through a specific problem. The gaps at the base get addressed with banked earth. You spend an afternoon hauling dirt and packing it against the exterior walls, creating a seal that's not perfect, but better. The earth freezes solid, becoming part of the structure. A rampart against the wind that probes constantly for weaknesses. Someone figures out that hanging fabric inside creates a second wall. Dead airspace between the layers. It's basic insulation, the kind that should have been obvious, but wasn't, until someone tried it out of desperation. A wool blanket gets sacrificed for this purpose. Hung from the frame, creating an inner lining. The difference is immediate and dramatic. The interior space becomes measurably warmer. Not warm, but warmer. And warmer is everything. The sleeping arrangements evolve too. The concept of individual sleeping space disappears. It's not sustainable. Bodies need to cluster to share warmth to create a collective heat that no single person can generate alone. A platform gets built. Rough branches laid across supports, creating a surface elevated maybe 8 inches off the ground. It doesn't sound like much. 8 inches. But those 8 inches put you above the coldest air, the layer that sinks and pools the air that's closest to the frozen earth. The platform becomes the center of social hierarchy. Who sleeps where? The children and the elderly in the middle, where multiple bodies on all sides create the warmest zone. the healthy adults on the edges. It's not discussed or formally decided. It just happens, arranged by the invisible logic of survival. You learn the architecture of your own body's defense against cold. The way curling into a ball reduces surface area. The way tucking your hands between your thighs keeps fingers from freezing. The way pressing your face into fabric creates a small pocket of warm air that you breathe back and forth, warming each inhale with the previous exhale. These are skills, real skills, as valuable as carpentry or literacy, maybe more valuable here in this moment. A man who can read Latin but can't keep himself warm through the night won't survive to read anything ever again. The shelter teaches you humility. Every night reveals some new inadequacy, some gap. You didn't seal some corner. You didn't reinforce some aspect of cold you hadn't anticipated. The wind is a particularly cruel teacher. It finds every weakness, presses against them. Some nights, the whole structure shudders under gusts that feel personal, like the wind has taken offense at your attempt to block it and is determined to remind you who's in charge. You lie there during these assaults, listening to the framework creak, wondering if this will be the night it all comes apart. If you'll wake to canvas in your face and stars overhead and cold flooding in without barrier, it doesn't come apart. Somehow, impossibly, it holds. But every night brings that same uncertainty, that same low-level terror that sleep itself is a risk, that lowering your guard, letting your consciousness drift, might mean not coming back. This is what changes you more than anything. Not the physical discomfort, though, that's profound. It's the psychological weight of going to sleep afraid, of treating rest as something dangerous, of training yourself to sleep lightly, to maintain some thread of awareness, even in unconsciousness, ready to wake if the shelter's sounds change in ways that signal danger. Your dreams are different here, simpler, less narrative, more sensation. You dream of being warm in abstract ways, not warm in a specific place or situation, just the pure sensation of warmth. Your sleeping brain has abandoned complexity and gone straight to the core desire. Sometimes you dream you're back in England in a bed with a mattress and sheets and a roof that's held rain out for 300 years. You wake from these dreams with a grief that feels disproportionate. It's just a dream, but the loss of it, the return to this cold reality, hurts in ways that are hard to explain. The native people have structures that work better. You've seen them from a distance, lower to the ground, different materials, different techniques developed over generations of living in this exact climate with these exact resources. Pride keeps most of the colonists from asking for help directly, from admitting that the people they think of as savages have solved problems the colonists are still suffering through. But observation is allowed, watching and learning through careful attention to what works. You start noticing things, the way their structures are positioned relative to prevailing winds, the specific types of insulation they use and how it's layered, the height of their sleeping platforms, the size and placement of their fires. Each observation becomes an experiment, a small test. If you adjust your shelter this way, does it help? Sometimes, yes, sometimes no. But gradually, through trial and error and cold nights of testing theories with your own body, the shelter improves. By mid-December, it's almost adequate, which is to say, you're probably not going to die from exposure, though you'll be miserably cold every single night until spring. That's victory. That's as good as it gets. And you learn to accept it, to stop measuring your current situation against memories of comfort and start measuring it against the simple metric of survival. Are you alive in the morning? Then the shelter worked. Everything else is luxury you can't afford to expect. The structure will stand all winter, will evolve and be patched and reinforced and adjusted dozens of times. By spring, it will look different from how it looks now. More solid, more competent. The work of people who've learned hard lessons and applied them. But it will never be a house, never be warm, never be anything except the absolute minimum barrier between human flesh and a winter that would kill that flesh in hours without protection. And that's enough. It has to be enough, because it's all you have. Your body is burning itself to stay alive. You can feel it, not metaphorically, literally. The constant hunger is your cells demanding more fuel for the furnace that's running day and night, fighting against a cold that never stops trying to steal heat faster than you can generate it. The transformation happens gradually. You don't notice it day by day, but week by week the changes become undeniable. Your face is thinner. The softness that might have been there is gone, burned away. Your ribs are becoming visible. Your hands look different, more skeletal, the tendons standing out like cords under skin that's become papery and dry. This isn't illness. It's physics. Your body requires a certain number of calories just to maintain its temperature. In moderate climates, that number is manageable. Here in cold that never relents, the number keeps climbing, and the food supply keeps not meeting it. Breakfast, when there is breakfast, might be a portion of cornmeal mush. The cornmeal came from the native people, a trade. Beads and metal tools for bags of dried corn that's been processed in ways you don't fully understand but are desperately grateful for. The mush is grey and tasteless without salt, and salt is precious rationed carefully. But the mush is filling in a way that matters. It sits heavy in your stomach, and heavy is good. Heavy means your body has something to work with, something to burn. You eat it hot as your mouth can stand. Not because it tastes better hot, but because the heat itself is nutrition of a kind. Those minutes while you're consuming something warm, you feel your core temperature rise slightly. It's temporary. The warmth fades within an hour. But that hour is a gift. The portions are never quite enough. You finish eating, and you're still hungry. Everyone is still hungry. There's a calculation happening at a level above individual need. The food has to last until spring. Beneath the frozen ground, deeper than the frost line can reach, the root cellar holds what might keep you alive. It's not a grand structure, just a hole dug into earth lined with stones where stones could be found, covered with layers of bark and soil for insulation. But inside that dark, damp space, Turnips and carrots and other root vegetables wait in their beds of sand. The vegetables down there are changing, growing sweeter actually as their starches convert to sugars in the cold. It's a transformation you don't understand but can taste. A turnip pulled from the cellar in January is different from one harvested in October. Denser, more concentrated. Every calorie in it hard-earned by the plant now transferred to you. Someone has to make the trip down there. Descend into darkness with a light that barely illuminates. Feel through the sand for shapes. Bring back what's needed. It's cold work. The cellar is warmer than outside, but colder than the shelter. Your fingers go numb, sorting through the buried roots. But the cellar is hope made physical. Proof that summer's abundance can be stretched into winter's scarcity. That planning and labor and knowledge can create a bridge between seasons. Every root vegetable eaten is one day closer to spring. If everyone eats until satisfied, the supplies won't make it. So everyone eats until no longer dying, which is different from satisfied by a distance that grows more painful each day. Fat becomes an obsession. Any food with fat in it is treasured beyond all proportion. A piece of salt pork with a strip of fat on it is worth more than meat 3 times its size. The fat is calories, yes, but it's also something your body can use to insulate itself, to build a layer of protection under the skin. Except there's never enough fat to build anything. Whatever fat you consume gets burned immediately, thrown into the furnace to keep core temperature from dropping into dangerous territory. You think about food constantly, not in the way you might have daydreamed about meals back in England. This is different, more desperate. Your mind fixates on the memory of being full, of eating past hunger into satisfaction, of food being something other than calculated survival. At night, pressed against other bodies for warmth, you can smell what they ate. The onions someone managed to procure. The fish another person traded labor for. Everyone's breath carries the ghost of their last meal, and you find yourself cataloguing these scents, comparing them to what you had, wondering if they're warmer tonight because they ate better. The clothing you wear has become part of your body. You haven't removed it in weeks, maybe months. The concept of changing clothes is absurd. You own what you're wearing and maybe one other set of garments, and both are needed simultaneously. One to wear, one to place under or over the first set for additional insulation. Linen against your skin. That's what you were taught. Linen is proper. Linen breathes. But linen also conducts heat away from your body with alarming efficiency. You've learned to add wool directly over the linen. Wool that's thick and oily and smells of the sheep it came from. Wool that itches terribly against skin that's become sensitive from the constant cold. But wool works, even when it's damp, and it's often damp from sweat or condensation or the general moisture that pervades everything. Wool retains some insulating properties. It's miraculous in a way. This fiber from an animal's back creating tiny air pockets that trap heat, giving you a buffer against the cold. Over the wool, more wool. A waistcoat, a coat, each layer adding weight but also warmth. You move like a padded thing, stiff and slow. But movement generates heat too, so perhaps the stiffness is acceptable. Perhaps it's even useful forcing you to move more deliberately, to work harder to stoke the furnace. Your hands are a constant problem. They're always exposed, always working, always losing heat faster than the rest of your body. Gloves help when you can wear them. But most work requires dexterity that gloves prevent, so your hands are bare and they pay the price. The skin on your knuckles cracks, deep fissures that bleed and sting. You try wrapping them with cloth, try rubbing them with animal fat when some is available. Nothing really works. The cracks heal slowly, if at all, and new ones appear constantly. Your fingers go numb multiple times a day. You've learned to recognize the stages. First, they hurt from the cold. Then they stop hurting. Then they're white and stiff. That's when you need to warm them immediately before the damage becomes permanent. You tuck them under your arms, press them between your thighs, hold them close to the fire, careful not to get too close, because frozen flesh and sudden heat is a combination that can destroy tissue. The warming hurts badly, a burning, stabbing pain as circulation returns. But pain means the tissue is alive, means you haven't lost it yet. Some people have lost fingers, usually just the tips, the last joint on a little finger or a ring finger. The flesh freezes, dies, eventually blackens and falls off. It's horrifying the first time you see it. Then it becomes another fact of winter, another price that sometimes has to be paid. Your feet are encased in layers you barely remember assembling. Stockings, wool stockings, more cloth wrapped around the stockings. The stockings inside boots that are meant for farm work back in England, not for slogging through frozen forests and standing in snow that sometimes reaches your knees. The boots leak. Of course they leak. They weren't designed for this. Water gets in, then freezes, and you're walking on ice that's formed inside your own footwear. You try to dry them by the fire each night. It never works completely. By morning, they're stiff and cold, and you have to force your feet back into them, a process that feels like punishment. Your toes hurt every morning. Not a sharp pain, a dull, deep ache that suggests damage is accumulating. You wiggle them obsessively, checking that they still move, checking that you can still feel them. The day you can't feel them is the day you'll know you've crossed from damage into disaster. There's a hat you wear constantly, a knitted cap that covers your ears and comes down low on your forehead. At night, you sleep in it. You'd sleep in it even if it was bright summer, because the habit is now so ingrained. But in winter, it's essential. The hat is filthy, sweat-stained and stretched out and probably home to lice, though you try not to think about that. But it keeps your head warm, and your head is apparently a chimney for heat. You learned this from someone who learned it from someone else. Cover your head, and your whole body stays warmer. It sounds like folklore, but it's true. You've tested it. Nights without the hat are measurably colder than nights with it. Food at midday is often nothing, or almost nothing. A piece of hard bread, some dried fish if you're lucky. You eat while working, barely pausing because pausing means cooling down. and cooling down means needing more time to warm back up. The work is constant. Gathering wood is never finished. Repairing the shelter is never finished. Maintaining the fire is never finished. Every task leads to another task, and all of it is made harder by the cold that slows your movements and clouds your thinking. You've noticed your mind works differently in the cold, slower, less flexible. Problems that should be simple become complex. You find yourself standing with an axe in your hand, staring at a log, forgetting for a moment what you were supposed to do with them. The cold is eating your thoughts, burning them for heat, just like it burns everything else. Evening meal is the most substantial when there is substance to be had. A stew, maybe. Vegetables that are starting to rot but are still edible if you cut away the bad parts. Meat when it can be had. Grains to thicken it. Everything boiled together until it's soft enough to eat without much chewing. The stew is served hot as possible. You cup your bowl in both hands, letting the heat transfer into your palms before you start eating. The first bite is scalding. You don't care. You want that heat. Need it. Your mouth is tough enough now to handle temperatures that would have made you cry out in pain months ago. The warmth spreads through you as you eat. You can track it. First, your throat, then your chest, then your stomach. It radiates outward from there, a brief internal warmth that's almost as valuable as the calories. You eat slowly, trying to make it last, trying to extend the period of having hot food inside you. But there's only so slow you can go before the food cools, and cold food is still food, but it's lost its magic, lost the property of warming from within. After eating, there's a brief window where you feel almost okay, almost like a normal human being, rather than a half-frozen creature focused entirely on survival. This is when people talk, when what little social life exists can happen. But the window closes quickly. Within an hour of eating, the cold reasserts itself. The temporary warmth fades. Your body has processed the food, burned what it needed for immediate energy, and now you're back to baseline, which is cold, which is always cold. You've developed strategies for sleep that no one taught you. Your body figured them out through trial and error, through nights of suffering, through mistakes and discovering what worked. You sleep on your side. Knees, drawn up arms, tucked tight against your chest. This position minimizes exposed surface area, makes you smaller, harder for the cold to find purchase. The sleeping platform itself is a construction of warmth, not just wood and bodies, but layers of textile defense built up over weeks. Heavy bed rugs, thick wool pieces that weigh more than you'd expect are spread across the platform. They're coarse and scratchy, but they trap heat underneath them like a lid on a pot. Each rug is a barrier between flesh and the cold that rises from below. More blankets are layered on top. Not the fine blankets you might have known in England. These are rougher, practical. Some are pieced together from scraps sewn with uneven stitches by hands that were more concerned with function than beauty. But they work. Each layer adds resistance to the cold's theft. In wealthier households, back when such distinctions mattered, enslaved people would maintain this system through the night. rising to feed the fire when it dimmed, checking that bed coverings hadn't shifted, ensuring the warmth stayed trapped where it was needed. Here, you take turns. Everyone is both servant and master to survival's demands. The bed rugs are never washed, can't be washed. There's no way to dry them properly in winter cold, so they accumulate the smell of bodies, of smoke, of all the nights they've been slept under. The smell becomes part of the sleeping experience, another sensory marker of survival. You press against whoever is next to you, shamelessly, completely. Any gap between bodies is wasted warmth. You align yourself so that your back is against someone's chest or vice versa. Spoons in a drawer, bodies in a pile. Your breathing becomes synchronized with the people around you. Not intentionally, it just happens. The rhythm of collective respiration creating a pattern you can hear even in sleep. Knowing you're breathing together is somehow comforting, proof that you're all still alive. The cow is in the corner tonight. She's been brought in because the cold is severe enough that she might die outside. She's not happy about it, keeps shifting and making unhappy noises. But her presence raises the temperature in the shelter by several degrees. You can feel it. The heat coming off her massive body is a gift she gives unwillingly, but gives nonetheless. You sleep near her when you can, not touching. She won't allow that, but close enough to feel her warmth, close enough to hear her breathing, deep and steady, another heartbeat in the darkness. The goats are better about being close to humans. They settle in among the people, finding warm spots, contributing their own heat to the collective pool. They smell terrible. Their shit is in the corner, adding to the general perfume of too many mammals in too small a space. But they're warm, and warmth excuses almost anything. There's a dog curled at your feet, thin and scraggly, half-starved like everything else. But its body temperature runs hot, and it's willing to share that heat in exchange for a warm place to sleep and occasional scraps of food. You can feel its heartbeat through your stockings, fast and strong. Proof of life. Proof that in this place of cold and death and constant struggle, life persists, continues, refuses to surrender. Your dreams tonight are strange, fragmented. You're eating something, but you can't taste it. You're walking somewhere warm, but you can't see it. Your sleeping mind is trying to construct comfort, but doesn't have the raw materials anymore. Doesn't remember clearly enough what comfort felt like. You wake sometime in the deep night. Your bladder is full, demanding. You try to ignore it, try to fall back asleep. But the pressure builds until it's impossible to ignore. The trip outside is misery, disentangling yourself from the pile of bodies, stepping over sleeping forms, finding your boots in the dark, forcing frozen feet into frozen leather, stumbling to the door, pushing through it into a cold that hits like a physical blow. The stars are incredibly bright, brittle and sharp, and offering no warmth whatsoever. The snow on the ground glows faintly under starlight. Everything is silent except for your breathing, which fogs white and dissipates. You do what you came to do, quickly, then retreat back to shelter, back to the warm darkness, back to the pile of bodies that are your only source of heat and comfort. Finding your spot again is difficult. You've cooled down. Your skin is cold to touch. The people around you flinch when you press back in. You're an intrusion of cold into their carefully maintained warmth. But they accept you back because they have to. Because next time, it might be them making the cold trip outside. You curl back into sleeping position. Wait for your body to rewarm. It takes longer than it should, longer than it used to. Your body's ability to generate heat is diminishing. The reserves are running low. The furnace is still burning, but the fuel is becoming scarce. This is what no one tells you about survival. It's not dramatic. It's not a single moment of do or die. It's 1,000 small degradations, 1,000 tiny losses that accumulate until one day your body just doesn't have enough left to keep the furnace running. But that day isn't today. Today, you're alive. Cold, hungry, uncomfortable, but alive. And that's enough. It has to be enough, because it's all there is. Fire is a living thing with moods you're learning to read. Not learning to predict, that would be too much to hope for, but learning to recognize, to respond to negotiate with. This morning's fire is sullen, refusing to catch properly. You're kneeling in front of it, blowing gently on a struggling flame that keeps threatening to die. Your breath is the only thing keeping it alive right now. You and this fire are in conversation. Your breath says, please. The fire says, maybe. The wood is part of the problem. It's damp. Everything is damp. Even the wood you thought you dried adequately has soaked up moisture from the air from the ground, from the general wetness that pervades this place. The wood accepts the flame reluctantly burning with visible resentment, producing more smoke than heat. Smoke has a color language. Gray smoke means the wood is wet but burning. White smoke means you've got a good hot fire going. Black smoke means something's wrong. Maybe the wood is too green. Maybe the draft is poor. Maybe the fire is being starved of oxygen. You're learning to read smoke the way you used to read books, looking for meaning in its movements and hues. This fire is giving you grey smoke, lots of it. It pours up from the struggling flame, then seems to change its mind and billow back down, filling the shelter with acrid clouds that make your eyes stream and your throat close. You adjust the ventilation. There's an art to it. The hole at the top of the shelter needs to be big enough to let smoke out, but not so big that it lets too much heat escape. And the wind has opinions about which direction smoke should travel. When the wind blows from the wrong direction, it pushes down the chimney hole, forcing smoke back inside. Today, the wind is from the east. This is a bad direction. You've learned this through painful experience. East wind always means smoke problems. You hang a piece of canvas to partially block the chimney opening, creating a baffle that the wind has to work around. It helps. Not perfectly, but enough that the smoke starts rising more consistently. The flame catches properly suddenly. No warning. One moment it's struggling, the next it's alive and eating wood with enthusiasm. The change is so abrupt it startles you. Fire is like that. Binary, either barely alive or fully committed. There's not much middle ground. You feed it carefully. Small sticks first. Let it build confidence. Then slightly larger pieces. The fire accepts each offering, grows stronger, begins to radiate actual heat rather than just smoke and promise. The heat reaches your face, the first real warmth you've felt since waking. Your cold, numbed cheeks begin to thaw. The sensation is painful at first, prickling and burning. But it's a good pain, the pain of coming back to life. Other people are waking now, drawn by the sight of successful flame. They gather around the fire like it's a person they're greeting. Good morning, fire. Thank you for being alive. Please stay alive. There's a hierarchy to fire placement that's never been formally discussed, but is rigidly observed. The children and elderly get closest. They need the heat most. The healthy adults form a second ring. Everyone else makes do with whatever warmth radiates far enough to reach them. You're in the second ring now, close enough to feel heat on your face and hands, far enough that your back is still cold. You'll rotate soon. Everyone rotates. 15 minutes warming your front, then you turn and warm your back. Then you give up your spot to someone else. Fairness is critical. If some people dominated the fire while others froze, the social structure would collapse. You need cohesion. Need everyone to believe they're being treated equitably. So the rotation happens without argument, without formal timekeeping. People just know when their turn is up. The wood supply is always on your mind. You can see the pile from here. See how much is left. Do the mental calculation of how long it will last at current consumption rates. The answer is never reassuring. Yesterday, you spent 4 hours gathering more wood. It's hard work made harder by cold that makes every movement more difficult. You walk into the forest with an axe. Find fallen branches first, the easy pickings. But fallen wood is often rotted worthless. So you have to cut living wood, which means felling small trees. One settlement you've heard has built a contraption, a wooden frame with a saw blade that can be worked by 2 people pulling ropes in alternating rhythm. It cuts through logs faster than an axe can split them. More efficient, less exhausting. The idea seems almost magical from this distance. You've talked about building something similar, pooling labor and knowledge to create a tool that would ease the relentless work of wood processing. But everything takes time you don't have, takes materials already stretched thin, takes energy reserves that are constantly depleted. So you continue with the axe, with your own strength and whoever can be spared to help. The work remains brutal. Your shoulders ache from the repetitive motion. Your hands blister and callous and blister again. But the wood pile grows, has to grow. The alternative is unthinkable. Sometimes you dream about that machine, the one you've never seen but can imagine. The saw blade moving back and forth with mechanical efficiency. Cutting wood faster than cold can steal warmth. It's a dream of a future where survival requires less suffering, where tools multiply human strength instead of just channeling it. The axe work warms you at first. The exertion generates heat, but when you stop to rest, the cold rushes in twice as fierce for having been temporarily driven back. Your sweat freezes in your clothes. You shiver violently while trying to decide if you have the energy to keep working or need to return to shelter. You keep working. You have to. The wood pile demands constant feeding, or it shrinks to nothing, and nothing means death. Carrying the wood back is its own challenge. The pieces are awkward, heavy, covered in snow or ice. You make multiple trips. Each time you return to shelter, you're exhausted. Each time you leave again, you're colder than before. But the pile grows. Slowly, painfully, it grows. The evening ritual of banking the fire is sacred. Everything depends on getting it right. If the fire dies overnight, morning becomes a crisis. You'd have to restart from scratch with cold hands and desperate urgency. So you watch the fire as evening deepens. Wait for it to burn down to coals. This takes hours. You can't rush it. Fire burns at its own pace. When the flames finally die back and you're left with a bed of glowing coals, the real work begins. You use a flat stick to rake the coals into a compact pile. Arrange them so they're touching each other. Coals clustered together retain heat better than coals spread apart. It's the same principle as bodies huddling for warmth. Then you cover them, gently. A layer of ash over the glowing coals. Not too thick, or you'll smother them. Not too thin, or they'll burn through by midnight. The ash layer has to be just right. Thick enough to slow combustion to barely alive levels. Thin enough to allow the minimal oxygen the coals need to avoid dying completely. You've failed at this multiple times. Woken to cold ashes and the terrible knowledge that you have to start over. The memory of those failures makes you obsessive now. You check and recheck the ash layer, make small adjustments, test different thicknesses in different spots. Finally, you're satisfied, or as satisfied as you can be. The coals are banked. You can see the faint red glow through the grey ash. See the occasional shimmer of heat rising. It's alive. It should stay alive through the night. Should. There's a prayer that goes with banking the fire. Not a formal religious prayer, though some people do those too. This is more personal, more like a plea. Please still be alive in the morning. Please don't abandon us in the coldest hours. Please. The fire doesn't answer prayers, of course. It just burns or doesn't burn according to physics you barely understand. But praying helps. Makes you feel like you have some influence over whether you wake to warmth or cold. You've noticed different woods burn different ways. Oak is the gold standard. Burns hot, burns long, creates coals that last for hours. Hickory is similar. These hardwoods are what you hope for every time you go gathering. Some settlements have discovered something better than wood. Coal. Black rocks that seem inert until fire touches them. Then they burn with an intensity wood can't match. Hotter, longer, more reliable. You've tried coal once, traded for at considerable cost. The first challenge is getting it to ignite. Coal doesn't catch like wood does. You need an established fire, first hot enough to coax the coal into burning. But once it commits, once those black chunks start glowing red, they radiate heat for hours. Through the night, into morning, The heat from coal is different, more constant, less fluctuating than wood that burns through its stages. Coal just glows, steady, relentless. The warmth it gives off is dry somehow, intense. You can feel it on your face from farther away than wood heat reaches. But coal is expensive, rare. Most of what you burn is still wood. The coal is saved for the worst nights. The times when you need heat, you can count on. When you can't afford to wake up and tend the fire multiple times. Coal becomes a luxury measured in hours of uninterrupted sleep. But hardwood is hard to work. Takes more effort to cut, takes longer to split. Your body pays for oak in sweat and exhaustion. Sometimes it feels easier to gather pine or other softwoods. They split easily, cut quickly. The immediate gratification is appealing, but pine burns fast, consumes itself in bright flames that look impressive but don't last. You can burn through a pile of pine in a night that would have lasted 3 nights if it was oak. The math doesn't work. Pine is a bad deal. But when you're exhausted and cold, and the thought of splitting oak feels impossible, pine becomes tempting. You've learned to compromise, mix the woods. A base layer of oak coals with pine for quick heat when needed. It's not perfect, but it works better than committing fully to either strategy. The native people use fire differently. You've observed this when opportunities arose. Their fires are smaller, more controlled. They seem to achieve more heat from less wood. It's frustrating, humbling. These are people you were taught to think of as primitive, and they've mastered skills you're struggling to learn. Part of it is the rocks. They heat stones in the fire until the rocks glow. Then they move the hot rocks to places where heat is needed. The rocks retain warmth for hours. Release it slowly. It's more efficient than trying to heat an entire space with just burning wood. You've started trying this. It works, but requires attention and care. Hot rocks are dangerous. You've burned your hands more than once moving them. Dropped one once, and it cracked apart explosively, sending sharp fragments everywhere. But when you do it right, when you wrap a heated rock in cloth and place it near your sleeping spot, the warmth it provides is remarkable. Another technique you've borrowed, building smaller fires. Your instinct, especially early on, was to build the biggest fire possible. More fire equals more heat equals better. But big fires consume wood at terrifying rates, and much of the heat goes straight up and out, wasted. Smaller fires are harder to trust. They look inadequate. But if you position them right, if you use rocks or other materials to reflect the heat, where you want it, smaller, fires can actually be more efficient. They definitely use less wood. And using less wood means spending less time gathering wood, means having more energy for everything else. These are lessons learned slowly, painfully, through failures and cold nights, and the gradual realization that working harder isn't always the answer. Sometimes working smarter is what survival requires. The smoke smell has become permanent. You can't smell it anymore on yourself because you are the smell. every fiber of your clothing, every hair on your head. Your skin itself seems to have absorbed it. You've become a smoke person, a creature of fire and ash. This bothers you less than it should. Smoke smell means fire was alive, means you were near enough to it to absorb its scent, means you survived another day. There are worse things to smell like than survival. The relationship between fire and darkness is intimate. Fire creates light, but it also defines darkness, makes it deeper. The glow of the fire reaches only so far. Beyond that radius, the darkness is absolute, thick and textured. Darkness that feels like a physical substance rather than just the absence of light. You sit sometimes at the edge of the firelight, looking into that darkness, wondering what's out there. Probably nothing. Probably just trees and snow and cold. But your imagination populates the darkness with threats, with eyes watching, with things that might exist or might just be the creation of a tired mind in a frightening place. The fire is protection against more than cold. It's psychological armor. As long as it burns, you're not alone in the darkness. You're not helpless. Fire is humanity's oldest tool, and having it makes you feel human rather than just another frightened animal trying to survive winter. Some nights the fire acts strangely, burns with different colors, green sometimes or blue depending on what's in the wood, sap or minerals, or something you don't understand. The colored flames are beautiful, mesmerizing. You watch them longer than you should, time disappearing into their dance. There's danger in watching fire too long. You start to see things in it, faces, scenes. Your mind creating patterns and narratives from random flame movements. It's hypnotic. If you're not careful, you'll sit there for hours, letting the fire drain time from your life while you stare into it like it holds answers. But maybe it does hold answers, or at least it asks the right questions. Watching fire makes you contemplative, makes you think about impermanence, about how quickly something can go from alive to dead, from warm to cold, from light to darkness. Fire is teaching you philosophy through demonstration. Everything burns eventually. Everything turns to ash. All heat is temporary. All light fades. These aren't cheerful lessons, but they're true ones. And truth has value even when it's uncomfortable. The morning fire is different from the evening fire. Morning fire needs to wake you up, push back the cold that accumulated overnight, give you enough warmth to face the day. Evening fire needs to last, to maintain, to survive the long darkness and still be alive when dawn comes. You're learning to read what each moment requires, to give the fire what it needs when it needs it, to work with it rather than trying to dominate it. Because fire can't be dominated. You can influence it, guide it, but ultimately, fire does what fire does, burns what it wants to burn, dies when it runs out of fuel or oxygen or patience. The best you can do is create conditions that encourage it to stay alive. That's not a bad metaphor for everything else you're doing here. You can't control the winter, can't stop the cold or command the snow, or negotiate with the wind. All you can do is create conditions that encourage survival. Build shelter that blocks some of the cold. Gather food that fuels your body's furnace. Maintain fire that provides heat and light, and the psychological comfort of being something you can actively tend. The rest is chance, luck, variables beyond your control that will either work in your favor or won't. Tonight, the fire is burning well. The wood is reasonably dry. The draft is pulling properly. Smoke is rising instead of sinking. These are good signs. Signs that this night at least you won't be fighting the fire along with everything else. You watch the flames settle into a steady rhythm. Listen to the occasional pop of sap pockets exploding. Feel the heat on your face and hands. Behind you, your back is cold. Below you, the ground is leaching warmth from your body. Above you, the shelter walls are doing their inadequate best to keep the worst of the cold at bay. But in this moment, in this small radius of firelight and warmth, you're okay. Uncomfortable, certainly. Cold in more places than you're warm, but okay. Alive. The fire flickers and shifts, sends patterns of light dancing across curved walls, creates the illusion of movement of life, of something other than static suffering. You feed it another piece of wood. Watch the flames explore this new fuel. Accept it. Begin consuming it. Tomorrow you'll do this again, and the day after, and every day until spring. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, the fire burns, and that's enough. There's a calculation your skin performs without consulting your mind. How many points of contact between your body and other warm surfaces? How much heat is being exchanged at each point? Whether the exchange favors survival or invites death. Tonight, you're positioned between two people whose names you know, but whose bodies you know better. The woman to your left runs warmer than average. You've learned this over weeks of sleeping in proximity. Her back against your chest radiates heat in a way that feels like generosity, though it's just biology. Her body burning its resources at a slightly faster rate than yours. To your right is an older man who shivers constantly. Even in sleep, his muscles tremor trying to generate warmth through movement. The shivering travels through the platform you're sharing. You can feel it like a low vibration. Sometimes it keeps you from falling fully asleep. But his body is still warmer than the air still worth pressing against. The child tucked in front of you belongs to someone else. A girl, maybe 7 years old, thin as a winter branch. She's curled into a ball so tight, she barely takes up space. Her breathing is fast, shallow. Children breathe faster than adults. Their hearts beat faster too. Little furnaces burning hot and quick. She's positioned here because this is the warmest spot, surrounded on all sides by adult bodies, protected. The settlement can't afford to lose children. Not just because children represent the future, though that's true, but because losing children breaks something in the adults, makes survival feel less worth the effort. Your arm is draped over her, not quite holding her, just resting there, creating another point of contact. another seal against heat loss. She shifts in her sleep, pressing back against you, seeking warmth with unconscious desperation. You can feel her ribs through the fabric she's wearing, can count them if you wanted to. The thought makes you sad in a way you don't have energy for, so you push it aside. Focus instead on the practical matter of shared warmth, of keeping this small furnace alive through another night. The sleeping platform creaks under the combined weight of bodies. It's not meant to hold this many people. It was built as a temporary solution that became permanent through necessity. Some of the support branches are starting to bend. You can feel the slight give when weight shifts. Eventually, it will fail. Will need to be rebuilt stronger, but that's a future problem. Tonight, it holds, and that's sufficient. Someone at the edge of the platform is cold. You can tell without looking, can hear the quality of their breathing, the small sounds of discomfort, the shifting as they try to find a position that doesn't exist. A position where cold isn't winning. The rotation will happen soon. Whoever is coldest will tap someone in a warmer position. A simple touch. No words needed. Everyone knows the system. Everyone participates because everyone takes their turn at the cold edge. You're not at the edge tonight. You're deep in the middle, surrounded by warmth. You won the lottery of positioning through no merit of your own. Just happened to be here when people lay down. Tomorrow night, you might be at the edge. Might be the one counting minutes until rotation. But tonight, you're warm. Relatively warm. As warm as anyone gets. The cow is closer to the sleeping area tonight than usual. You can hear her breathing. Deep, wet sounds. The occasional cough that sounds almost human. She's sick with something. Has been for days. Everyone's worried because if the cow dies, a major source of warmth dies with her. But she's still alive tonight. Still breathing. Still radiating heat that warms the air near her in measurable ways. You can smell her too. Strong and animal. A smell that would have disgusted you months ago, but now barely registers. Cow smell is warm smell, therefore good. The goats are burrowed into the human pile somewhere. You can't see them, but you can hear them. The soft sounds of their chewing. Goats chew constantly. Even in sleep, they're processing food, their complex stomachs working through vegetation. The heat they generate from this digestion is a bonus you've learned to appreciate. One goat is pressed against your legs. You can feel its warmth through the layers of fabric and wool. Can feel it shift position, occasionally resettling itself. Its presence is comforting in a way that goes beyond temperature. Another living thing. Another heartbeat in the darkness. A dog is somewhere in the pile too. You can hear it occasionally. A small whine, the scratch of its paw against wood as it dreams of running. Dogs dream more obviously than humans. Their legs move. Their mouths twitch. They make sounds that suggest they're somewhere else entirely. Somewhere better. The dog's body temperature is higher than human temperature. They burn hotter for reasons you don't understand but appreciate. Having a dog willing to sleep pressed against you is like having a small furnace that breathes. That occasionally licks your hand in the middle of the night for reasons only the dog knows. Touch has become a language you speak fluently now. The pressure of a hand on your shoulder means move over. A tap on your back means time to rotate. Someone's foot pressed against yours means they're checking if you're awake, checking if you're still alive. Because people do die in the night sometimes. Usually the very old or the very sick. They go to sleep and simply don't wake up. Their bodies give out in the coldest hours. The cold finds the weakness and pushes through. You've woken to find a dead person next to you twice now. The first time was horrible. The second time was horrible too, but familiar. You knew the protocol. Tell someone quietly. Don't wake the whole shelter. Move the body outside where it will freeze solid and wait for spring burial. Come back inside. Try to go back to sleep in the space that person left empty. The empty space cools quickly, becomes a cold spot in the warm pile. Someone else has to fill it, or the collective warmth suffers. So someone moves, takes the dead person's spot, continues sleeping. It sounds callous, but it's survival. The dead are beyond cold. The living are not. You think about touch in ways you never did before. In England, touch was regulated, appropriate and inappropriate, proper and improper. There were rules about who could touch whom and how and when. All of that is gone, irrelevant. Touch now is purely functional. Skin to skin, or as close to it as layers of wool, allow for the purpose of not dying. There's nothing romantic about it, nothing sexual. It's biology, mathematics, heat transfer. The woman to your left shifts in her sleep. Her movement presses her more firmly against you. You adjust automatically, maintaining the contact, maximizing the shared surface area. These adjustments happen constantly throughout the night. A slow dance of bodies trying to minimize individual heat loss while maximizing collective warmth. There's breathing synchronization happening. You noticed it weeks ago. When people sleep close together for long enough, their breathing patterns start to match. Not perfectly, but close. Rising and falling together, like a single organism with multiple lungs. It's strange and beautiful in its way. This accidental coordination. Nobody is trying to breathe together. It just happens. The body seeking efficiency even in unconsciousness. Matching rhythms to conserve energy. You can hear multiple heartbeats too, or think you can. Sometimes you're not sure if you're hearing someone else's heart or just feeling your own pulse in multiple places. But there's definitely a percussion happening. Multiple hearts beating, multiple bodies pumping blood, multiple furnaces burning. The child in front of you makes a small sound. Not quite a word, not quite a cry, just a vocalization from somewhere in her dreaming. You press slightly closer, offering more warmth. She settles back into deeper sleep. This instinct to protect children isn't something you chose. It's automatic, primitive, the species protecting its future. Even here, even in this desperate situation, the impulse to shield the young persists. Someone is praying quietly. You can hear the whispered words, not the specific words, just the cadence of prayer, the rhythm of asking something bigger than yourself for help. You don't pray much anymore, don't know what to ask for beyond what you're already trying to do. Survive, stay warm, see morning. But you understand the impulse. Prayer is another form of touch, reaching out towards something you hope is there, making contact with the possibility of meaning, of purpose, of some reason for this suffering beyond random cruelty. The platform creaks again. Someone is getting up. You hear the careful extraction, the shuffle toward the door, the brief blast of cold air as the door flap moves. Then, the longer wait while they do what they need to do outside. Then the return, the cold body pressing back into the warm pile, the collective flinch, the gradual rewarming. You've made that trip yourself twice tonight already. Your bladder doesn't hold like it used to. The cold does something to it, makes it urgent, makes it impossible to ignore. So you go, suffer through the brutal exposure, come back, warm up slowly. Try to sleep again. Each trip costs warmth, costs energy. But there's no choice. The body has needs that don't care about convenience or warmth preservation. You meet those needs and deal with the consequences. Touch also means feeling the suffering of those around you. The woman to your left is coughing more tonight. You can feel each cough shake through her body into yours. Feel the effort she's making to suppress them, to not disturb everyone. But the coughs come anyway, wet and deep, worrying. Sickness spreads in these conditions, inevitable when you're breathing each other's air, sharing space with no ventilation to speak of. One person's cold becomes everyone's cold. One person's cough becomes a shelter-wide cough. You've been sick twice this winter. Once early before you'd adapted, once more recently. Both times you stayed in the sleeping pile because there was nowhere else to go. Let your body fight while other bodies kept you warm. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes the body wins. Sometimes it doesn't. The old man to your right has stopped shivering. This could be good or bad. Good if he's warm enough that shivering isn't necessary. Bad if he's too cold to shiver, too depleted to generate the movement. You pay attention to his breathing instead. Still regular, still present. He's okay, just sleeping deeper now. You've learned to read bodies in the dark, to know who's awake and who's asleep by breathing patterns, to know who's suffering and who's managing by the tension in their muscles, to know who might not make it through the night by the subtle signs you've learned to recognize. It's not knowledge you wanted, but it's knowledge you need. In this dark, in this cold information is survival. Knowing who needs help and when can be the difference between waking to one fewer person or waking to everyone alive. There's a child crying somewhere, not the one in front of you, another one. The crying is quiet, muffled. A parent is soothing them. Soft sounds, words you can't make out. The crying subsides. Sleep reclaims the child. Children cry more quietly here than they did when you first arrived. They've learned that crying doesn't change anything, doesn't make it warmer or provide more food or bring comfort beyond what's already being given. They've adapted, become stoic in ways that seem wrong for their age, but necessary for their survival. The pressure of bodies around you is constant, inescapable. There's no personal space, no privacy, no moment when you're not touching or being touched. It should feel claustrophobic, should feel oppressive. Sometimes it does. But mostly, it just feels necessary. Because alone, you'd be dead. Alone, your body can't generate enough heat to survive these nights. Alone, the cold would find you and take you. Together, pressed in this pile of flesh and wool and shared desperation, you have a chance. The mathematics of touch are simple and brutal. More contact equals more warmth, equals better survival odds. Less contact equals less warmth, equals death. There's no room for preference or comfort, only for the practical reality of heat transfer. Someone farts. The smell is immediate and terrible. There's a moment of collective awareness, everyone noticing, nobody commenting. What would be the point? It happens. Bodies do what bodies do. You breathe through your mouth and wait for it to dissipate. These indignities would have been mortifying before, would have been sources of shame and embarrassment. Now they're just facts. Body sounds, body smells, body functions that can't be hidden or polished or made civilized. You're animals sleeping in a den. That's the truth of it. The woman to your left has relaxed into deeper sleep. Her breathing is slow and even. Her body has stopped the constant micro-adjustments of waking. She's gone somewhere else, somewhere her mind has constructed that's warmer than here. You hope her dreams are kind. Your own mind is starting to drift. The edge between waking and sleeping is blurring. You're still aware of the bodies around you, still conscious of cold and warmth and the platform beneath you. But awareness is becoming less sharp, less immediate. Touch is the last sense to fade as you slip towards sleep. You can stop seeing first because it's already dark. Can stop hearing clearly because the sounds are familiar and not threatening. But you can't stop feeling the warmth and pressure of bodies around you. That contact persists into sleep, becomes part of your dreaming. You dream sometimes that you're drowning in bodies, suffocating under the weight of flesh. Wake up gasping, needing space, needing air. But the cold drives you back into the pile, back into the contact. The claustrophobia is real, but the alternative is worse. The child in front of you has rolled over. She's facing you now. You can feel her breath on your neck, small puffs of warm air. Her face is pressed against your chest. She's using you as a pillow, as a shield, as a source of warmth. This trust is humbling. She doesn't know you particularly well. You're not her parent. But here in the dark, you're warm, you're alive, you're protection. And that's enough for her to press close without fear. You shift slightly to give her better access to your warmth. Tuck your chin to create a small pocket of warmer air near her face. Small adjustments, small kindnesses. They don't cost much, but they might mean everything. The rotation happens. You feel it begin at the edge, someone tapping someone, bodies shifting. The cold person moving inward, a warmer person taking their place at the edge. The wave of movement travels through the platform, reaches you. You don't need to move this time. You're in a good position. The wave passes beyond you. The man to your right is shivering again. The cold has found him. He's trying to suppress it, trying not to disturb anyone, but the shivering is stronger than his will. His whole body tremors. You press closer, offer more of your warmth. It's not enough, but it's something. Touch is both comfort and curse. Comfort because you're not alone. Curse because you're never alone, can never escape, can never have a moment of solitude. But you've stopped wanting solitude, stopped craving privacy. Those desires belong to a version of yourself that lived in warmth and safety. That person is gone. This person, the one you are, now wants only warmth. And warmth requires touch. The night continues. Hours pass, or minutes pass, or time doesn't pass. At all just exists in a frozen state like everything else. You drift in and out of sleep, never deep, never fully unconscious, always aware on some level of the bodies around you, the shared warmth, the collective struggle. This is survival, not the dramatic kind, not the stories you'll tell if you make it to spring. This is the real survival, the unglamorous kind, the kind that's just bodies pressed together in the dark, stealing warmth from each other, making it through one more night. One more night. That's all you can think about, all you can plan for. One more night. And touch is what makes it possible. You don't wake on purpose. The waking happens to you like weather. One moment you're submerged in sleep, the next you're surfacing into consciousness without understanding why. The shelter is dark, absolutely dark. The fire has burned down to almost nothing, just a faint glow beneath ash if you know where to look. Around you, the breathing of sleepers creates a soft rhythm. Multiple breaths at different frequencies overlapping, creating accidental harmonies. This is the watch, the time between first sleep and second sleep. You've stopped fighting it, stopped trying to force yourself back under immediately. The body wants this wakeful period, needs it for reasons you don't fully understand but have learned to accept. You lie still, careful not to disturb the child who's still pressed against you. Her breathing is quick and light, still deep in first sleep. She won't wake for hours yet. Children sleep differently, more completely. They can surrender to unconsciousness in ways adults no longer can. Your mind in the watch is strange. Not quite awake, but not sleeping either. Thoughts move slowly like cold honey. Ideas emerge and dissolve without urgency. There's no anxiety in this state, no fear, just a floating quality, a suspension. You think about your mother, haven't thought about her directly in weeks. But now, in the watch, her face comes clearly, the way she looked when you were young, before the hardness of life carved itself into her features, before children and work and disappointment aged her beyond her years. She would be horrified by this, by how you're living, sleeping in a pile like animals, wearing the same clothes for months, eating with your hands from communal bowls. She raised you to be better than this, more civilized, more English. But she's not here. England is not here. Those rules belong to a world that's not this world. and you're alive, which is more than many can say. You wonder if she'd be proud of that, of simple survival, or if she'd see it as failure, see you as having fallen from grace. The thought drifts away, replaced by nothing in particular, just awareness of cold on your face where it's exposed, awareness of warmth where you're pressed against other bodies, the sensation of being alive in a body that's tired but functional, damaged but not broken yet. Someone else is awake. You can tell by their breathing. The quality changes when someone moves from sleep to waking, becomes more conscious, more controlled. You don't know who, don't need to know. Just another person experiencing the watch. The watch is private even though you're never alone. Everyone respects it. No one speaks. No one makes unnecessary noise. It's understood that this is time for internal processing, for the mind to do whatever mysterious work it does in this half state. You need to check the fire. It's the responsible thing to do. The fire is everyone's concern, but particularly the concern of whoever is awake when it needs tending. You extract yourself carefully from the sleeping pile. The cold hits immediately, brutal and shocking. Your body, which was warm, is now an exposed thing in hostile air. You move through the darkness by memory and feel. Your feet know the path to the fire pit. You've walked it hundreds of times. Your hands find the stick you use for tending. The familiar weight of it is comforting. You kneel by the fire pit. The stones around it are cold. That's bad. Means the fire is dying faster than it should. You use the stick to gently probe the ash, looking for coals, hoping for red glow. There, a small section of coal still alive, glowing dull red when you move the ash aside. You breathe on it gently. Your breath carries moisture, but also oxygen. The coal brightens slightly, responds to the offering of air. You feed it carefully. Small pieces of kindling first. Dry splinters of wood you prepared earlier specifically for this purpose. The kindling catches. Small flames appear, yellow and hesitant but growing. You add slightly larger pieces. The fire begins to rebuild itself. The process takes time. You can't rush it. Fire has its own pace. You have to work with it, not against it. Add too much too fast, and you'll smother it. Add too little, and it'll die anyway. You've learned this balance through failure, through nights when the fire died and morning was crisis. The flames grow. Push back the darkness slightly. Create a small radius of flickering light. The heat reaches your hands first, then your face. The relief is profound. You hadn't realized how cold you'd gotten until warmth touches you again. You add a proper log, oak. It accepts the flame reluctantly at first, then more enthusiastically. The fire is established now, strong enough to sustain itself. You add another log for good measure. Bank it slightly to slow the burn. It should last until morning now. The fire tending has warmed you. Your hands are functional again. Your face has thawed, but your back is freezing. Your legs are cold. You're warm on one side, frozen on the other. The fundamental asymmetry of winter. You should return to the sleeping pile. Reinsert yourself. Let your body warm up fully, but the watch holds you, makes you reluctant to surrender consciousness again so soon. The fire is alive and you're alone with it. This is rare, precious even. You sit. Let yourself have this moment, watching the flames move, listening to them consume wood. The sound is intimate. Quiet pops and crackles. The breathing of fire. It's alive in ways that feel almost companionable. Prayer happens during the watch sometimes. Not formal prayer, more like conversation with something you hope is listening. You pray now, though it feels more like thinking out loud to a presence that might exist. Thank you for another day, another night, another instance of still being alive. Please let this continue. Please let the cold ease eventually. Please let spring come. Please let there be enough food, enough wood, enough strength. The prayers are simple, practical. You're not asking for comfort or happiness, just for continuation, for the basic minimum of survival. That's all you have room to hope for. The fire answers with heat and light, which is not an answer to prayer, but is the only response you get. You accept it. Take what you can get. Other people are stirring. The watch is a communal experience, even though it feels private. You hear someone else get up, move to the corner where the waste bucket is kept. The sounds of human necessity. Then the return to sleep. Someone is crying very softly. You can barely hear it. Just the small sounds of breath catching, of grief being released in small controlled amounts. The watch is when emotions you suppress during the day sometimes surface. You don't investigate, don't offer comfort. That's the courtesy of the watch. Let people have their private suffering. Let them release what needs releasing in the darkness where it won't be examined or judged. The crying stops, replaced by regular breathing. Sleep reclaiming someone who needed to weep before they could rest again. You think about what will happen to you, to all of you, if you survive winter, if spring comes, if you make it through to warmth and abundance. Will you go back to being who you were? Or has this changed you permanently? You suspect the latter. You suspect that living like this, suffering like this, creates alterations that run deeper than circumstance. You're being remade by winter, shaped by cold and hunger and fear into something different from what you were. Whether that's good or bad is unclear. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe it's just change neutral in itself, meaningful only in what you do with it. The watch allows these contemplations, creates space for thinking that's too dangerous during the day when you need to focus on immediate survival. At night, in this suspended state, your mind can wander into bigger questions. You remember a conversation from before winter, someone saying that suffering builds character, makes you stronger. You believed that then in an abstract way. Now you're less sure. Suffering might just build suffering, make you harder without necessarily making you better. But you're still here, still fighting. That has to count for something. The fire has settled into a steady burn, The logs are catching well. Heat is radiating outward in a comfortable radius. You extend your hands toward it. Let the warmth penetrate your palms, travel up your arms. It's a sensation you never appreciated properly before. The simple, profound gift of warmth. You've been in the watch for maybe an hour, maybe more. Time is difficult to track, but you're starting to feel the pull of second sleep, the drowsiness returning. Your body has processed what it needed to process, is ready to go back under. You return to the sleeping pile. Find your space. It's cooled in your absence. The child who was against you has curled tighter, retreated into herself without your warmth. You press back in carefully. She responds unconsciously, unfolds slightly, accepts your warmth again. The others around you haven't moved, still deep in their own first sleep, or maybe already into second sleep. You've lost track of where everyone is in the cycle. It doesn't matter. You're all moving through the night together, just at slightly different rhythms. Your body begins to relax. The warmth from the fire combined with the warmth of bodies around you is enough, is good. You can feel sleep approaching like a gentle tide. Not the crash of first sleep, but the softer arrival of second sleep. Second sleep is different, more prone to dreams, less deep, but more restorative in some ways. Your mind works during second sleep, processes the day, makes sense of things, stores memories, does the maintenance work that consciousness prevents. You dream about water, not cold water, warm water, swimming in it, floating, the warmth surrounding you completely. No cold anywhere, just warmth and water and the sensation of being held. It's a good dream, a healing dream. Your sleeping mind giving you what your waking body cannot have. Temporary but valuable. You sink into it gratefully. The dream shifts. You're walking through summer, actual summer. Green everywhere. Sun that's warm instead of pale. Flowers you can't name. The smell of growing things. Heat that's pleasant instead of desperately needed. You know it's a dream, but you don't care. Let it be a dream. Let this warmth be imaginary. For these moments, it's real enough. Someone is shaking you gently. You surface reluctantly. The dream dissolves. Cold reality reasserts itself. But the shaking continues, insistent. You open your eyes. It's still dark, but different dark. The quality has changed. Dawn is approaching. Not here yet, but close. Someone needs you to wake up, needs your help with something. You sit up, your body protests, stiff and cold and not ready to move. But you move anyway, because someone needs something. Because survival is collective. Because when someone wakes you during second sleep, it's important. It's one of the older women. She's gesturing toward the corner where the sick people are kept. Someone is worse, needs help, needs more bodies to provide warmth, needs the community to rally. You go, still half in dream, still carrying the warmth of imaginary summer. But you go, because that's what you do. That's what everyone does. When one person needs help, everyone helps. Not from generosity, from the understanding that next time it might be you who needs it. The sick person is a man you barely know. He's shivering violently despite being covered in every spare bit of fabric. His skin is hot, but he's shaking with cold, fever and chills at the same time, his body fighting something and losing. You lie down next to him, press close, offer your warmth. Others do the same. 4 bodies around him now, sharing heat, trying to keep his temperature from dropping too low or rising too high, finding the balance that lets the body fight. This is what community means here. Bodies in service to other bodies. Warmth shared without hesitation. Not because you particularly like this man, but because he's human and suffering, and you have warmth to give. The watch extends. Second sleep is delayed. You lie next to this fevered man, feeling him shake, hoping your warmth helps, hoping morning comes soon, hoping he makes it through. Around you, the shelter is slowly waking. The darkness is becoming grey. Day is approaching. Another night survived. Another morning to face. The watch ends not with a decision, but with a gradual transition. Sleep becomes less possible. Wakefulness becomes inevitable. The day begins to make its demands. You've been awake off and on for hours, but you don't feel tired in the usual way. The watch has its own kind of rest. Not sleep, but not quite waking either. A third state that restores something. Sleep alone cannot. The sick man has stopped shivering. His breathing is deeper, more regular. He might be actually sleeping now instead of just fever unconscious. That's good. That's progress. You stay close a while longer, making sure, then carefully extract yourself. Let someone else take your place. Your body aches in new ways. Your hip is bruised from the platform. Your shoulder is locked up. Your neck refuses to turn properly, but you're alive, functional, capable of facing another day. This is what the watch teaches you, that survival isn't continuous. It's segmented, broken into pieces you can manage. First sleep, the watch. Second sleep, then day, then do it again. You can survive segments, one piece at a time. That's bearable. That's possible. And tonight, you'll do it again. Return to sleep. Wake to the watch. Sleep again. Wake to morning. Over and over. Until spring. Until warmth. Until this becomes memory instead of experience. The animals know first. They always know. The cow becomes agitated 3 hours before the first flake falls. Pacing the limited space inside the shelter. Lowing in that particular way that means distress. The goats huddled together in a corner, refusing to separate. The dog won't settle, keeps circling, whining, looking at the door like something terrible is approaching from that direction. You've learned to trust animal fear. They sense changes in air pressure, in wind patterns, in the electromagnetic signature of approaching weather. They know things your human senses can't detect. When the animals are afraid, you should be afraid too. The wind changes first, shifts from its usual westerly direction to coming straight from the north. North wind is always bad, always brings the worst cold. But this wind has a quality beyond direction. It's steady in a way that normal wind isn't. Purposeful, like it knows exactly where it's going and what it plans to do when it gets there. The sky is strange all afternoon, not quite one colour, shifting between grey and a pale yellow that looks diseased. The light is wrong, flat, shadowless. Everything looks unreal, like the world is holding its breath. People are moving faster than usual, gathering extra wood, bringing in anything that might blow away, reinforcing the walls, checking the roof, checking it again. Everyone feels it. The approach of something significant. You're hauling wood when the first snow arrives. Not flakes. Not yet. This is something finer, almost like dust. Ice crystals suspended in air that's so cold they don't melt when they touch your skin. They accumulate on your coat, your hair, turn you white in minutes. The work continues, has to continue. You need wood for what's coming. Need as much as you can possibly gather. Your hands are numb, but you keep loading your arms with split logs. Keep making trips from the pile to the shelter. Each trip is colder than the last. The wind is building. By late afternoon, real snow is falling. Thick flakes coming fast. The wind is strong enough now to drive the snow sideways. It's difficult to see more than a few feet. The world is erasing itself, becoming nothing but white and wind and cold. Everyone is inside now. The shelter feels crowded in a new way, tense. People are checking supplies, counting how much wood there is, how much food, how long it can last if you're trapped inside. The calculations are grim but necessary. The cow takes up so much space, too much space. But she's inside because leaving her out would be murder. Her body heat is worth the crowding, worth the smell, worth the constant sound of her distress. The storm builds through the evening. The wind becomes a physical presence, a force that pushes against the walls, testing them, looking for weaknesses. The whole structure shakes under the sustained pressure. You can hear individual poles creaking, can hear the lashings groan. The snow is accumulating fast. You can hear it landing on the roof, a constant soft sound underneath the wind. Each flake adding weight, each inch of snow pressing down. The roof was never designed for this kind of load, was built as a temporary shelter, was meant to last maybe one season. Dinner is simple, a thin stew, not enough to satisfy, but enough to put something warm inside everyone. The food has to last, has to be rationed, because no one knows how long this storm will last. Could be days, could be a week. You eat slowly, make it last. The warmth in your hands from holding the bowl is almost as valuable as the food itself. When the bowl is empty, you hold it a while longer, stealing those last moments of warmth. The fire is struggling. Wind is coming down through the smoke hole, disrupting the draft. The flames keep flattening, recovering, flattening again. Smoke is backing up into the shelter. Eyes are watering. Throats are burning. But you can't reduce the smoke hole too much, or you'll suffocate on smoke. It's a balance. a dangerous game. Someone adjusts the covering over the smoke hole, creates a baffle. The draft improves slightly. The smoke begins rising more consistently. It's not perfect, but it's better. Small victories. Night comes early. Or maybe it's not early. Maybe it's on time. But the storm makes everything darker. The wind is screaming now, not howling. Screaming. A high sustained note that goes on and on. The sound gets inside your head, makes it hard to think. You settle into position for sleep, but sleep seems impossible. The noise is too loud, the shaking too constant, the fear too present. You lie there with eyes closed, trying to rest, but your body won't relax, stays tense, ready to respond to disaster. The child next to you is crying. Quiet, frightened crying. The storm has terrified her. You pull her closer, make soothing sounds, tell her it will be okay, even though you're not sure that's true. Tell her the shelter is strong. Tell her you're safe. Tell her lies that might become truth if you believe them hard enough. She gradually calms. The crying stops. Her breathing slows. She's not sleeping, but she's quieter. That's the best you can do. The first real crisis comes around midnight. A massive gust hits the shelter, stronger than anything before. The whole structure lifts slightly, actually lifts off the ground, then slams back down. The sound is catastrophic. Poles snapping, fabric tearing, people screaming. Everyone is up immediately, scrambling in the darkness, trying to understand what broke, what needs immediate repair. Lanterns are lit. The damage is assessed. Part of the roof has torn away, not completely, but a section has pulled loose. Snow is coming in through the gap. Wind is pouring in. The temperature inside the shelter drops instantly. Men are shouting, organizing. Someone needs to go outside, needs to try to secure the roof from the exterior while others work from inside. It's dangerous, insanely dangerous. But if the roof fails completely, everyone dies. So people volunteer. You're not one of them. You're holding the child, keeping her from panicking, trying to stay out of the way of the people who actually know what they're doing. But you watch. Watch men prepare to go into the storm. They tie ropes around their waists, tie the other ends to support poles inside the shelter. If they get disoriented, if they lose their way in the white blindness outside, the ropes will guide them back. Hopefully. The door opens. The storm forces its way in. Wind and snow and cold and noise. It's like the door opened onto chaos itself, onto the void. The men push through it, disappear immediately into the white. Inside, people hold the ropes, keep tension, create a lifeline. The ropes move, shift. The men outside are working, trying to secure canvas that's trying to escape, trying to reinforce poles that are bending, trying to do construction in a blizzard at night. It takes 20 minutes, 30. Time becomes strange. Each minute feels like an hour. You're all waiting, praying, hoping the ropes don't go slack, don't signal that someone was lost. Then the rope signals come. 3 tugs. The agreed-upon code for comeback. The ropes are pulled, carefully, hand over hand, drawing the men back from the storm, back to shelter. They come through the door covered in ice, completely white, stumbling, barely able to move. Their clothes are frozen stiff. Their faces are frost-bitten. Their hands are damaged, but they're alive. They're back. The door is closed, secured. The immediate crisis is over. The roof is reinforced. Not perfect, but better. Less snow is coming in, less wind. It will hold. Probably, hopefully. The frozen men are stripped of their icy clothes, wrapped in dry fabric, placed near the fire, given hot liquid. Their hands are checked for frostbite. The damage is there. White fingers, no feeling, but not black, not dead yet. They might keep their fingers if luck holds. Everyone settles again, tries to sleep, but the adrenaline from the crisis is still high. Hearts are still racing. Sleep comes slowly, if at all. You drift eventually. Not deep sleep, surface sleep, conscious of every sound, every shift in the wind. Ready to wake instantly if another crisis comes. The storm rages all night, all the next day, all the next night. The world outside has become incomprehensible. Nothing but white and wind and cold that wants to kill everything. Food is running low. The portions get smaller, the stew thinner. But you're still eating, still alive, still generating enough heat to survive. Barely, just barely. The cow stops giving milk. Stress has dried her up. That resource is gone. One more thing lost to the storm. But she's still warm, still breathing, still worth keeping alive. The children are quieter than usual, subdued. Even they understand the severity. Understand that this is different from the usual winter hardship. This is crisis. This is survival balanced on the thinnest edge. Prayer happens constantly, whispered, mumbled, silent. Everyone is praying to whatever they believe in, asking for mercy, asking for the storm to break, asking not to die here in this dark shelter while the world outside tries to bury them. On the third day, the wind begins to ease, not stop. Just ease. The screaming quality fades. It's still loud, but less violent, less personal. By the fourth day, the snow has stopped. The wind continues, but it's moving old snow around rather than delivering new snow. The worst might be over. Might be. No one wants to say it. Don't want to jinx it. But hope starts to cautiously emerge. Maybe you survived. Maybe the worst has passed. The door is opened carefully, just a crack, to see, to assess. The world outside is unrecognizable. Snow has drifted to heights that seem impossible. The shelter is half buried. You're looking out onto a landscape that's been completely reshaped. Nothing is where it should be. Everything is white, but the sky is different, less oppressive. The storm is breaking up. You can see patches of sky through the clouds. Not blue sky, but sky. Actual sky, instead of just undifferentiated grey. People begin to emerge, carefully, one at a time. Stepping into snow that's waist deep in places. marveling at the transformation, at the destruction, at the fact that you're still alive to see it. The work of recovery begins immediately. Digging out, assessing damage, finding the woodpile which is buried somewhere under all this white, checking on neighboring shelters, seeing who else survived. Not everyone did. 2 shelters collapsed completely. The occupants had to be taken in by others, redistributed among the surviving structures. 1 elderly person died from cold, another from sickness that the stress of the storm made fatal. But most survived. Most are alive and functional and already working on repairs, on improvements, on learning from what the storm taught. Because the storm was a teacher, a brutal teacher, but an effective one. It showed exactly where your defenses were weakest, where your planning was insufficient, where you needed to do better. You take those lessons, store them, apply them, build the roof stronger, reinforce the walls better, change the way supplies are stored so they're more accessible, adjust, adapt, improve. The storm is over, but its legacy remains in frost-bitten fingers, in damaged structures, in traumatized children who will remember this fear forever, in the knowledge that winter is not done with you yet, that more storms will come, that you have to be ready, but you survived this one. That counts. That matters. You met the storm's challenge and you're still here, still alive, still fighting. The snow that fell will take weeks to melt, months. It's reshaped the landscape, created new barriers and new paths. The world you knew before the storm is gone. This is a different world, harder, colder, more dangerous. But you're learning the language of this new geography. The deep drifts that seemed like walls become pathways when you understand them differently. Someone has the idea to use the sleigh, the horse-drawn sled that's been sitting unused since before the storm. The wooden runners, smooth and curved, are designed for exactly this, for gliding over snow instead of fighting through it. The first attempt is clumsy. The horse is uncertain stepping high, nervous about the changed terrain. But once the sleigh finds its rhythm, it transforms movement. What would have taken hours of exhausting trudging through waist-deep snow becomes a smooth glide. The runners hiss over the packed surface. The sleigh cuts a path that others can follow. Someone makes an observation that seems backward at first. On the rare stretches where wind has scoured the snow away, exposing frozen earth, the sleigh struggles. The runners catch and drag. So you do something that feels absurd. You shovel snow back onto the bare ground. Create a smooth white road where the runners can slide freely. It works. You're not fighting the snow anymore. You're using it, making it serve you. The sleigh changes everything about winter travel. Supplies can be moved. Wood can be hauled in quantities that would have been impossible before. The distance between shelters which felt insurmountable during the storm becomes manageable. You're still isolated, still trapped by winter. But the trap has loosened slightly. There are paths now where there were only barriers, but you're still in it, still part of it, still refusing to surrender. The fire is rebuilt, fed carefully, nursed back to strength. It burns steady and bright, a defiance against the cold, a statement that humans are still here, still making light, still making warmth, still alive. Listen to the silence, not the silence of cold, not the silence of fear. A different silence, the silence of ending. Something has changed in the air. You can't see it yet, can't point to evidence, but you can feel it in the quality of morning light, in the way the cold sits against your skin. Less aggressive, less personal. Still cold, but cold that's losing its certainty. The days are longer now, measurably longer. Each sunrise comes a few minutes earlier. Each sunset arrives a few minutes later. Light is returning, slowly, incrementally, but returning. Water appears on the roof one afternoon, actual liquid water, dripping. You hear it before you see it, the sound of water moving. Water that isn't frozen. The sound is shocking, unfamiliar, beautiful. You go outside to see. There along the southern edge of the roof where sun touches longest, ice is melting, creating small flows, tiny rivers finding their way down and dripping onto snow below. The dripping creates hollows in the snow, perfect round holes where water has been falling. This is the beginning, the first crack in winter's armor, the first sign that the grip is loosening. Spring won't come quickly, won't arrive as a single event. It will seep in slowly, hesitantly. Winter will retreat reluctantly, fighting for every day, making false surrenders and returning with cold snaps that feel like betrayal. But the trajectory has changed. The balance has tipped. From now on, more days will be warmer than the previous day, then will be colder. The trend line is pointing toward life instead of death. You didn't know if you'd see this. Didn't know if your body had enough reserves to make it through to thaw. But here it is. Here you are, still alive, still present, witnessing the return of seasons. The birds notice before you do. You hear them one morning. Just a few calls, tentative, testing, asking if it's safe to return. Within days there are more. Small birds at first, then larger ones. The sky is no longer empty, is no longer silent. It has voices again. The snow begins to soften, stops being hard and crystalline, becomes heavy, wet. It compacts under its own weight, shrinks visibly day by day. Patches of ground appear, brown earth showing through white. The ugliest, most beautiful thing you've ever seen. You and the others who survived are different now, changed in ways you're only beginning to understand. Thinner, obviously, marked by frostbite and hunger and exhaustion, but changed in deeper ways too. You know things now, about cold, about darkness, about what human beings can endure when they have to, about what community means when community is the only thing standing between you and death, about fire and shelter and the price of warmth. You know what you're capable of, what your body can survive, what your mind can withstand. These aren't comfortable lessons, but they're real. They're yours, earned through suffering. The child who slept pressed against you all winter is stronger now, quieter, more serious. She's lost some essential childhood quality, some belief in safety, but she's alive. She survived. That has to be enough. The cow made it. Against odds, against reasonable expectation, she survived. She's thin. Her milk is still gone, but she's breathing. Her large, patient eyes still blink. She still radiates warmth on cold nights. You're grateful to her in ways that would seem absurd to explain. The goats survived. The dog survived. Not all the animals made it, but enough. Enough to rebuild from. Enough to carry forward. The people you lived with through this winter are more than friends now, more than community. They're the ones who kept you alive, who shared their warmth when warmth was life itself, who took their turn at the cold edge, who gave you space in the middle when you needed it most, who stayed human in conditions that could have made you all into something less. You'll never forget them, can't forget them. They're written into your survival, woven into the fact that you're still breathing. Spring is not easy. The mud is incredible, relentless. Everything is wet. The shelter that protected you from cold now leaks constantly. But wet is different from frozen. Wet is uncomfortable. Frozen is deadly. You'll take wet. The first green thing pushes up through mud in late March. Just a shoot, thin and pale, but green. Actually green. The root cellar is almost empty now. You check it one last time and find only withered turnips and carrots gone soft. The ones that lasted this long are survivors themselves. Tougher than they looked. You pull them anyway. Even spoiled vegetables can go into the compost, can feed the next season's growth. Standing at the cellar entrance, you realize this hole in the ground saved lives. Not dramatically, not all at once, but meal by meal, calorie by calorie. The roots stored here kept the furnace burning through the coldest months, kept bodies from consuming themselves past the point of recovery. You stand and stare at it for far too long. It's just a plant, just life doing what life does. But after months of white and brown and grey-green is a miracle. More green follows. Grass, then leaves on trees, then flowers. The world is remembering how to be alive, how to be something other than a killing field of coal. Your body begins to recover, slowly. The frostbite damage is permanent. You'll carry those scars, but the rest heals. Weight returns, strength returns. The constant shivering stops. Your body remembers how to regulate temperature without constant crisis. The nights are easier now. You still sleep in groups out of habit more than necessity. The bonds formed in desperate cold don't dissolve just because the cold lifted. You still prefer the presence of other bodies. Still find comfort in shared warmth, even when warmth is no longer scarce. But privacy becomes possible again. Space becomes possible. You can walk away from the shelter, walk into the forest alone, stand by yourself, be solitary without being in danger. It's strange at first, almost frightening. You've been part of a collective organism for so long that being separate feels wrong. But you relearn it. Remember how to be an individual, how to have thoughts that aren't shared, experiences that aren't communal. Summer will come eventually. Real heat, abundance, easy living, but you'll never take it for granted again. Never assume warmth is owed to you. Never forget what it cost to survive when warmth was gone. The shelter will be rebuilt, made better, stronger, informed by what winter taught. Next winter will still be hard, but it won't be this hard. Won't be the shock of first encounter. Will be manageable, because now you know. Now you understand. You're sitting near the fire tonight, but the fire is small, recreational rather than essential. The flames are pleasant instead of desperately needed. This shift is enormous. Fire as choice instead of obligation, as comfort instead of survival mechanism. The others around the fire are talking, planning next winter's preparations, discussing what worked and what didn't, what to do differently, how to be ready. These conversations are practical, but also therapeutic, processing trauma through the lens of future planning. You contribute sometimes, share observations, suggest improvements, but mostly you listen. Let the voices wash over you. These voices that were with you through the darkest times, that whispered prayers in the night, that cried and laughed and suffered and persisted. Night is falling, but it's a spring night, still cold, still real, but fundamentally different from winter night. This cold won't kill you, won't even truly threaten you. It's just weather, just temperature, manageable, survivable without constant vigilance. You'll sleep soon, in your corner of the improved shelter, surrounded by people you survived winter with. But tonight, you're not afraid of sleep, not worried about the night, not calculating heat loss and fuel reserves. Tonight, you can just rest, actually rest. Let your guard down completely. Let sleep be sleep instead of another form of labor. The winter you survived is over, behind you, part of your history now instead of your present. You carry it in your body, in your frostbite scars, in your changed relationship to cold and comfort and community. But it's over. You lived. Spring is here, and you can finally, truly, deeply rest. Let yourself sink now, into your bed, into warmth, into safety. Let your breathing slow. Let your muscles relax. Let your mind drift. You're not in colonial winter anymore. You're here, in this moment, in this warm place, comfortable, safe, protected. The cold you imagined can fade now. The suffering can recede. Take the lessons if you want them. The appreciation for warmth, the understanding of resilience, the knowledge of what humans can endure. But leave the cold itself behind. You don't need it anymore. Just warmth, just rest, just sleep. Deep and uninterrupted until morning comes and brings whatever morning brings. But for now, just sleep.